So I had a slightly different path. I started off as a child, I wanted to be an architect. And my dad was in the military, so we moved everywhere, all over India, and we lived in a lot of different cities. We lived in New Delhi, which is planned by during the British era by Lutyens. We lived in Chandigarh, which was designed by Le Corbusier, and then Bombay and or Mumbai now, and a lot of other cities. And always intrigued me how different cities were laid out, how those that were planned and those that grew organically, which was most of the cities in India, to be honest. But I wanted to be an architect, so that's where I went to school for my undergraduate degree. And as I was going through the program, I realized I wanted to study more than or design more than just single buildings and single objects on a single site. I wanted to think about how buildings work together to create a place. So in my undergrad program, we had to do a dissertation, which was a research thesis where I studied, how do you create pedestrian-only retail spaces at different scales, and then also looked at doing a master plan for a area around so basically broadened my work from being site specific to a larger city context. At the time, India didn't have a lot of good options for graduate studies, so I came to the US to study. I got my master's of architecture and urban design at the time from the GSD at Harvard, and since then I've been in California working first for a small urban design planning firm, and now with the firm I'm currently at, Ramey and Associates. I've been in California for the last 25 plus years now.
Awesome. On the school route, and this is a question for those that went to planning school, what did you learn on the job that you wish you would have learned in school?
So maybe I'll start here first, partly because I went to school for architecture and then urban design. I didn't go to planning school. So everything I learned about planning in terms of, codes, ordinances, and all of that was learned on the job. And I think that was, I always think that architects can do planning while the other way around is not that possible. So as someone who's been trained in architect, you begin to understand how buildings work, especially three-dimensionally, and you can bring that knowledge and expertise into the planning work that we do.
Tippe, Nancy?
Yeah. I think working in government, in local government and current planning and long range planning, I really wish I had learned a little bit more about technical planning. I think in my planning degree as an undergrad, so it was heavily based around like case studies and theories, and I didn't learn how to read a plan. Like Simran was saying, I didn't learn, what the difference was between a frontage and a setback measurement. Just simple things. We did, learn a little bit of design, but that's still not like how to read a building plan, construction drawings. That's totally different than architectural drawings. So that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Okay, for me, working in the public sector and providing public service, I went to an urban planning school. I found that there is a disconnect between what they teach in the school, which is all theory and policies, versus what you have to deal with, like TP has to deal with doing a plan review. There's a disconnect, and they have not taught us how to communicate with the public. Okay, you might be talking to a mom and pop person coming, a property owner coming to ask some questions, and they may be afraid because, it's the first time they go to the city hall, and you have to learn how to talk to them and explain the codes to them. And then there are some other that may not speak English well. and then you have to accommodate that and try to help them. So I think communication skill and public speaking is very important. I thought that there is nothing in the program that encourage urban planning students to take up public speaking, because we as planners at TB will know we have to present in front of the community, policymakers. So it's important that we develop this public speaking skill. What else? And I think me going back to college in the later part of my career, I have to say that old dogs can learn new tricks. So I did learn something new, even though I already worked in the planning field for so long. But going through the program again, I did learn quite a new skills and ideas about furthering the planning field. So that's my take on it.
One
That was
thing
a good one.
sorry, one thing I'd add here is, in school, understanding the fiscal impacts and the financial impacts of how development actually works is really important, and I don't think schools teach that enough. Because we can write the most visionary plans, but if the market doesn't allow for that to happen, it very likely won't.
Yes, I want to add to that and expand on it. I totally agree with Simran. For planners working in the public sector, implementing the zoning regulations, sometimes it might be an impediment for the development, but that's what I learned from USC. It's the program about, pro forma, why developers, builders want to develop and at what point. So we understand the financial part of it, and this would help we as planners would be able to help them go through the process smoother, so then there won't be unnecessary delay that could cause the project increase in the development costs. So I think that's a very good point, Simran.
We're gonna have to get you ladies together and put together a thing for some of the schools we work with on how they can better teach our upcoming planners. Because I think those are still big issues. I just went through the master's program and it was mainly theory. So I had worked in the field 8 years, went in, and it was one of those things where it's like, you just kind of have to get through the theory. If still happening. So on to the month we're speaking about and the interest group. Big question. As a planner who identifies as Asian Pacific Islander, what values or perspectives do you bring to your job? And I'm also going to go ahead and throw in there, not just Asian and Pacific Islander, but a female, because as we know, female planners were already a minority in the field. So with those two perspectives, what do you bring to your job?
I'm happy to get started.
Yeah.
So I think being Hapa, being half Asian, I think, my identity is really shaped by growing up in Hawaii. So everybody's mixed in Hawaii. Everybody's part Asian or Pacific Islander. Everybody is a little bit white. There's a lot of mixing going on there. But growing up, I was the white girl, and I kind of internalized that in Hawaii. If you see a picture of my family, my brother-in-law says there's 4 of us kids and each of us look like we have different parents, And in the sense that we all have different mixes. So when I travel, for example, a lot of people think I'm from Brazil. So I don't get American, I don't get white, but I also don't get Thai, So I'm a little bit more in the middle, ambiguous in how I look, which I don't think it necessarily matters so much, but in work, people kind of respond to that a lot, especially in the public sector when you're responding to the public. So something I didn't realize till maybe around COVID is that in Utah specifically, California, still has a lot of Asian population, but in Utah, not so much. So I didn't realize that in Utah, I'm not the white girl anymore. And so in the last, 5 to 10 years, I've slowly come to the realization that I don't have the same experience as my coworkers. So this is not something that I realized until I had some side-by-side comparisons a couple years ago where the public doesn't respond to me the same way that they respond to my coworkers. Um, it's totally fascinating. I get asked different questions. I get asked to interpret accents, at the front counter, even though I don't really speak like Spanish or other languages. And it's totally opened my eyes. And I've had a lot of conversations with my boss who's tried to share that experience with other people on my staff. And I don't think it's something that, you realize unless you're in this situation where people respond to you differently. But on the positive side of that, I think we do actually have a big Asian Pacific Islander population in my city. And when people see me, I feel like they trust the city a little bit more. There's a bit of a relationship there that wasn't there until they realize like, oh, she's from Hawaii, oh, like she's Thai. Like there are a couple of Thai business owners that they just get so excited when they meet me and they come back and like invite me to their business grand opening and things like that. Or they tell their neighbors and their friends about me in their community so that they feel comfortable asking planning questions where they might not have in the past. And it may seem like a small part of our community, but we're growing. In 6 years that I've been in this city, Saratoga Springs, we went from 30,000 residents to almost 70,000. So we're growing quite fast, and it's really important to get information out there and represent the people that we serve. And so that's something that I've seen specifically in my career in Utah.
Okay, I'm gonna chime in. For me, really, we bring to the work culture more harmony and group consensus, and we're much more open-minded because of who we are. And for us, we always want to do the right thing. We are on the right side, and we want to get respect, and we want to establish credibility in front of our peers, whether they are white or other. Well, I could share with you that for all my years, all 40 years, whenever I went to a meeting, and I've noticed that I'm the only female, and not just any female, but an Asian female. Because in the meetings, all I see is mostly white male, whether it's a development team, and in the public side, it's staff or with the developing side. So that's my observations early on. I mean, I'm a baby boomer, so when I started out is in the 80s, the 90s. But as time grows, I've noticed that I've seen more women in those meetings. And I'm happy, about that it has progressed a little bit. And also, I've noticed that quite a number of city managers in the Southern California, especially, are females now, whether they are female or white or Asian or other. So that is a change because back in those days, all you have is white male city managers. So certainly time has changed. It's been growing, and we need to continue to have that kind of progress. What else do I want to say? Well, Simran, you have anything to add? Because you're in the architecture field, because they are mostly male also.
That's right. So, growing up in India and being in the architecture field, women are underrepresented in architecture, not just
Right.
here, but frankly across the world. So that was something from even in architecture school that was very clear. We were about 20% of our class. But growing up in India, at least, your identity as an Indian was just kind of what it was. There wasn't any, like Tippe mentioned, everybody was mixed, or in Hawaii, it wasn't that a big part of your discussion. India has other ways of othering folks and all of that, which we won't get into here. But when I came here, it was a little bit of a culture shock. It was suddenly seeing that there is much more of identity politics that we see here. Folks identify themselves as certain groups more so than not. And like Nancy, going to meetings, being the only woman and often the only Asian or a person of color was something that happened more frequently than not. And it was just something you acknowledged and used to, and realized that if you want to be heard, you just have to speak up more.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily, and that took a little effort, but that was just something you had to do. It is a male dominated field, although I think planning has changed a lot in the last 20 odd years. There's a lot more women. There's obviously a lot more people of different backgrounds and in the field now. In terms of the work that we do, obviously when we are in the community, you still have a tendency of folks will go to, who's treated as a person of authority is different, right? If there's a white male, that's who people will go to as thinking that they are the head or they are the one leading the effort, right? That's an experience, I think, regardless of our background as women, we find that happens more often than not. So that's something we think we are all working to gain parity in, and I think it is changing slowly, though, too slow.
And I actually have something to add to this. This discussion is making me think of some data that I heard a few years ago. I found it on the Harvard Business Review. It says, although Asian Americans are the most educated segment of the American workforce, they're the least likely among all racial group to ascend to leadership roles. So we're more likely to be overeducated compared to other groups, but we are the least likely of every single group to be promoted. So we can be educated, we can work hard. We're not likely to be planning director. We're not likely to be in leadership roles. It's even more rare as a woman, especially, but so Asian American women are probably the least likely group to be in leadership roles, especially in government, but just all across the board. And I think some of this, I couldn't find the original article that I was thinking of, but some of this stems from children of Asian immigrants. You're raised to be, to give deference to leaders, to people above you. You're not supposed to be friends with your boss, right? And in America, the people that are friends with the boss are the ones, that tend to get a leg up a little bit sooner. And there's a cultural divide there, regardless of whether you were born and raised in America, being Asian American, that, that's just the way you're raised. You just talk a certain way. So even though, no one looks at me and knows I'm Thai, there's a certain way that you talk to your parents, or there's something about being raised by an Asian mother, that I definitely carry myself a certain way. For me personally, I feel like it also has I was raised to speak up and be loud. I think Thai culture is very loud. And, a lot of people don't think of Southeast Asia when you think of Asia. Asia's huge, right? So you have a lot of different cultural dynamics there. But I feel like that's something that I've tried to be more conscious of ever since I heard that statistic, to try to assert myself more than I would naturally, just because that's something that we're fighting against culturally, but also in both the Asian side and the American side there with our careers.
Leading that into a question that's a little bit off of our list, though, what advice would you give to other Asian American Pacific Islander women who are navigating careers in planning, who are considering leadership roles, how to get out of that kind of shoebox that you've put yourself in to work your way up that ladder?
I think my first thought is something that I would say that I've done for myself is I've gone to APA to get leadership roles, right? I can't get it no matter what I do. I can't get it at work. You know, it seems like some men can just work at a city for 2 or 3 years and then they become the next planning director. And I can apply for the same position, but there's just so much about, internal hires for one, yes, but also I don't like I'm always second best, which is fine. I love my job now, right? So I'm not like looking to leave, but I'm also trying to consider my future, building skills and trying to help communities better. It's not just a job for me, it's something I'm passionate about. So instead of just sitting around and waiting, I've gotten really involved with APA divisions, with APA with the chapter. So before before I became the chapter president for APA Utah, I was the vice chair for special projects with the international division. And then I've been on the steering committee. I've held different leadership roles as I've had time and more capacity in the past with the Asian Pacific Islander group. Um, I've just gotten really involved with APA, and it's something that, it brings me joy, but also it's intentional because that gives me leadership skills. It's actually building my skills and giving me something to put on my resume that where I don't have a director or management title. It's something that I'm hoping will get me there.
Yes, I echo what Tippe just said. Trying to learn about leadership skill. Not everyone is born a leader. Okay, I'm not a born leader. I learn about leadership skills and I practice the leadership skill. I mean, really practice it day in and day out. And another key point is for younger planners, besides learning about leadership skill and joining all these groups to help you, you need to find someone that could mentor you. Mentoring, finding a mentor is important. That would help you in your career growth. So I think seeking out someone, whether it's a man or woman, it doesn't matter, but try to have that person mentor you to teach you, to alert you on certain things and how to behave and how to do certain things is very important.
I would agree with everything Nancy and Tippe said. Finding a mentor, I think, is really important, and also exploring and pursuing leadership opportunities is great too. Here in California, we have the California Planning Roundtable, and we team with APA to do Leadership Academy every year. It's, in fact, I see one of our alumni, Banuja, on in the audience here today. So that's great to see. But the program is really a great way for young planners, women planners, Asian planners, planners of all kinds to learn about leadership and how they can evolve as leaders in their organizations, whether it be government or the private sector. I also think, having the self-confidence of knowing that you are the best, and putting yourself, the best of yourself out there whether it's in your work or in other situations, and having that self-confidence is really, really important in being able to grow both and taking the risks that it comes with to grow as a planner within your organization and to become a leader. I think that's really important. Sometimes I find that we feel we are less, but we are actually not. We all come with unique strengths and qualities that and can contribute a lot to whatever position we are working towards.
I'm going to let you know that I literally just texted Caroline, the chair, of WPD from this ladies and said that we need a path to leadership as women for an NPC session. So if you're interested, let me know. Because based off of Tippe just saying how many white men in local government have worked for 2 or 3 years and then have worked their way up to a directorship position. I get it. If anybody else here has had that experience, go ahead and just give me a heart. And then Nancy, I'm pretty sure I want that on a t-shirt that says not everybody's been born a leader, that we basically got to it through education and hard work and exposure. Definitely, I could see that resonating with women. So we need whoever wants to pick that up, we need a path to leadership for women for an NPC session. So tying on top of that, keeping into the same topic with that, as an Asian Pacific Islander woman and just a woman in planning, have you had to code switch in a professional setting, whether it was from the Asian Pacific Islander standpoint or the fact that you're the female in the room? How did you manage that, and what impact does that have? And for anybody who doesn't know, code switching's when I'm a very outgoing person myself. I'm very happy. And I've had a boss tell me before that I was too happy and I needed to tone it down and be more professional in a setting for people to take me seriously. So that's my code switching, going from Brittany, who likes people, to Brittany, who's the white crayon on the white piece of paper. That's what I mean by the code switching.
I actually haven't done that. Whether I should have or not, I just haven't. I have a different sounding name. I've stayed true to it. I haven't come up with nicknames that are easier to pronounce or speak. I haven't tried to change my accent. I haven't. I'm proud of who I am, and I've stayed with that. And frankly, I think authenticity is really important, and I'm just think being true to yourself is the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an immigrant, first generation to go to college. My parents never finished high school. It was interrupted by World War II. Coming here to America, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. So coming here, I do have a slight accent. I do speak English, but I worked very hard on my accent to change it, to make sure that I have as little as possible. And that's part of the self-motivation, self-learning, to make sure that I assimilated, I guess that's the word, assimilated into the American way of life. So I'm not familiar with your term. It must be millennial Gen Z term, code switching. So I don't know if I'm answering that question.
You are.
Okay, and I'll add a cultural element to that. I'm the second generation immigrant on my mom's side only. So I think in sociology, it's generation 2.5, where my mom didn't even become American until a citizen. She didn't get her citizenship till I was 8 or 9 years old. My dad used to joke that she was an alien and we didn't know what that meant because she had her green card. But growing up poor, growing up in Hawaii, and growing up, in an Asian immigrant household, when I started working in the professional world, it was really hard for me to relate to the way people function in a professional setting. Even in grad school, it was hard for me with we didn't eat out growing up, so it took maybe 10 years for me to really fit in eating out, if that makes sense, to understand how to order, how to tip, and how to be a professional. And I remember in my first planning job that wasn't an internship, my boss gave me feedback at my first or second annual review and just said that it was tacky. The only thing he had, and it wasn't a work thing, with my performance, it was just engaging with other people in the office. He said certain things I did were tacky. And it was just if there's extra food, and nobody was taking it, I just took 5. It's something that is just ingrained in culture, but also being a starving student and working for the first time, it just parts of this that that I don't think it was tacky necessarily, but then I started to notice things after that point, things that I did that were different in certain settings that were social but professional at the same time. And then I got a job at Park City, which is a very like one of the richest top 6 richest places in the country. And the planning department there was very, very different. Like nobody had magnets on their office. Nobody had like posters up. And I put something up for my travels and they're like, oh, well, it was a kind of an open office space, but it was my space. And they were like, oh, can you take that down? And my boss at that job, he's probably my favorite boss I've ever had. He kind of slowly taught me a little bit about like how to like what's appropriate when your boss buys you lunch, because he came from the private sector. You don't really see that a lot, people going from private to public sector in government, but in places like Park City that does happen. So he kind of trained me unofficially on like, okay, this is what people do when you go out to when your boss takes you out to lunch. This is what you do when you pay your consultant for lunch. He's like, here's the credit card. This is what you do. Don't forget to ask if they want coffee at the end. I never would have thought of that, you know? So there's a lot of cultural elements from that come from growing up in Hawaii that like I didn't know, like it wasn't a thing, and it's not something someone talks to you about or says explicitly. You know, in the mainland, we in Hawaii we call everything in the 48 states the mainland. So New York, LA, Iowa, it's all the same. So and that was the hardest thing for me. I think that took me about 10 years. So I guess I'm 35 years old now. So I think maybe 6 years ago is when I finally felt comfortable interacting in these settings completely.
You just taught me something. I went from public to private sector and I take clients out to eat. I've never ever offered to buy. I just tell them to get what they want.
I mean, I'm sure that works too. I think in the resort community world, it's a little bit more bougie.
So real quick, code switching. Nancy, you did hit the nail on the head. And Tippe, you hit multiple different code switches. The student, the female, the Asian Pacific Islander. Code switching is changing your tone or your vocabulary. So mine would be changing my tone to not so happy, a little bit more professional, downplaying cultural references, sounding more neutral or professional, Nancy. So your assimilation, dressing more conservatively for the workplace, or withholding an opinion. So Tippe, I hope you told your boss to go kick rocks. Please. Because if the food's going to go to waste, in my opinion, that's even worse. Like,
Totally
so.
agree.
But to be fair, I didn't need 5. You know what I mean? Like,
girl, you're a starving student. I get it, but he should go kick rocks. So tying into that, this is a good segue in, and then I want some of our members to join in on this too, especially if you're a female in planning. Hey, and if you're a male in planning too, or somebody who identifies differently, you too. Have you dealt with microaggressions, intolerance, or other forms of prejudice in the workplace or at community meetings? Tippe, you pointed on this slightly when you say that they make you do the front desk just because of your looks. So whether it's as a woman or an Asian Pacific Islander, microaggressions, intolerance, prejudice, because keep in mind we are minorities, and depending on where you are in the US, the builders and developers you deal with are very specific white type of male, or they can be. So
yeah, I'll just say, as a woman, a half Asian woman, there was a phase in the 90s, I think especially, that was like really objectifying of half Asian women. And I think I get that a lot, probably more often than not, even if it's just a simple, oh, like a lot of people like ask about my background, and then when they find out I'm half Asian, even if it's not like they're not thinking of Thai, they're thinking half Korean or something. They're like, "Oh, half Asian kids are the prettiest." And I'm like, "Are you talking about me?" You know, like what am I supposed to say to that comment? Like it's kind of objectifying, even if it's meant as a compliment. The way that they say it is just like it's just objectifying. So whether it's just a comment about looks in that way, or even like kind of sexualization of like, oh, nice skirt, you know, like, oh, you look like a secretary. I also think, being an Asian woman, I don't look 35, but I'm finally not looking like the intern. So so I think finally like people are starting to treat me like a professional at this point in my career, but that's mostly what I've experienced.
Well, for me, I have experienced a lot of comments, and they are all very annoying. For example, they would ask you, where are you from? And you tell them, hey, I come, live in the Bay Area and come down to Southern California. But they would keep but original, where you're coming from. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I'm American
Or
now.
where were you born? I've got that.
Yeah,
When
where
they
were you
don't like the
born? Yeah.
answer, where were you
Yeah,
born?
yeah, so they keep pushing for that kind of question. So that's very annoying. And that's one of them that I have to deal with. And then sometimes they would laugh at your accent, you know. Now, if you are from France, you have a French accent, they would say, "Oh, how cute." Okay. If you are British and have a British accent, wow, that's great. But then if you are Asian, you have a little slight accent, and I could see it from not just for myself, for other people, Asian women, and they kind of look down on them. And I think that's what we have to face with, and we need to speak up and tell them, don't do that. I have and I don't believe this. I have a colleague who have asked me, "Do you people celebrate Thanksgiving?" It just go. and It, it was very annoying. I don't think she meant uh, any malice in that questions. I think she just doesn't know, and that's us. We need to educate. We need to tell the other people our culture. What we stands for, and have an open mind. So those are some of my experiences that I have in all through my career.
I've had that asked of me too. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
So yes, not cool. But other incidents are, as I think I mentioned this earlier, you're in a community meeting, you have your staff with you, so there's the deference to a white male that tends to occur. Conversation gets directed to them as opposed to you. So that's certainly something I've noticed over the years. Overt hostility is really not something I faced. I'm lucky that way, but I do think that, and this happened recently, and I was trying to figure out why, where we were working in a community where things were very contentious at the time, and my boss at the time, he's a white male, and he got yelled at by the community, just called all kinds of names. And the next day I had a presentation equally controversial, and I got none of that. And I was wondering if there's a little bit more acknowledgement that, oh, you don't want to sound racist or whatever, that I didn't get that. So, or maybe I was just the better presenter. Anywho, so those are some that I faced I've only worked in the private sector, and both firms I've worked at have been very supportive, and I've never felt anything like that. I've reached leadership positions at both organizations, and as we bring on new planners in our firm, I try to work with them, to see how we can get beyond some of these issues that we all face. We can't change the world, but we can try and make a difference one person at a time.
I'll also go back to something Simran said earlier in this hour, is with our names. So like Tippe is a Thai name. It's short for Tiptida. Thai people almost never go by their first name, and I tried to go by my legal name, and Tippe just stuck by middle school, high school. So by the time I got to my professional life, like I'm Tippe, So I stuck with it. I didn't hide from it. It was a big decision, especially when I got AICP, to keep my name. And the comments you get sometimes, especially working with the public, is like, what kind of name is that? Or like, oh, it must be Tiffany. Like, you must not actually be Tippe. I must have heard wrong. And it's just, there's really nothing to say to that. So you just kind of, especially when you're dealing with the public, so you just kind of have to move on. But those are some of the things that we face, and what can you do besides just ignore it? But it happens and it's noticeable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some good points there, ladies. Something I've noticed through all your stories is, regardless of color, tying into the women aspect, we all have experienced the same thing, from public to private sector. So it's definitely something our field needs to work on. And then another thing our field still needs to work on is also how we embrace our minorities in the field too. So I think that's something that we can all take away from this and something we can all work on. Does anybody have any questions for our ladies that they want? Feel free to raise your hand and I'll click on you if anybody has anything. If not, I've got a few more to end us with. Let me see. Oh, hey Morgan, go for it.
Hi. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today. I really appreciate it, especially as an ally who's grateful to be in this space. I wanted to ask sort of a question about Asian American identity when it comes to planning. Specifically, I would love to know how I can do a better job of planning projects in places that are, I think, really are best for the Asian American community.
Morgan, can I ask where you're based?
Sure. I'm based in the Los Angeles area in California.
Okay, LA. LA is great. There's tons of resources in LA. There's a lot of ethnic enclaves and community development organizations that service each individual community, but they all work together, especially the Asian Pacific Islander groups in LA. Like, for instance, I don't know if you were on earlier, I used to volunteer with the Thai Community Development Center. They're one of the 5 AAPI groups in Los Angeles specifically that work together often, with Thai Town, Little Tokyo. So there's a Little Tokyo Service Center. Each of the communities kind of has their own group or several groups. But if you reach out to one of them, they kind of all know each other and you can kind of get a feel for it. The sad thing is that we're such a diverse group. Asian Pacific Islander accounts for dozens upon dozens upon dozens of individual, very unique, very different cultures. But reaching out to community groups to engage them and meet people where they are is really important. Like, for instance, here in Utah, the best thing I tell people is go to the Utah Asian Festival. That's where you find everybody. In LA, it's a little more difficult because there's so many people, but I would go to those community development organizations there.
Yeah, Long Beach has a Cambodian cultural center with some active community groups there. There's of course some in Artesia, which is the South Asian focused area. So, issues are different for facing each community. There are the planning issues that any community faces. And then there are some specific to identity. And often those are tied to language issues, especially if you have those who don't don't speak English much or at all.
Awesome, thank you. Shayu, is that correct? I'm not going to ask you where your name's from because that's rude, but I'm going to make sure I pronounce it correctly.
That's actually perfect.
Oh, high five me.
Hi. Yes, so my name is Xiaoyan, and thanks for sharing your experience as a Asian female planner. And as a female Asian planner, I resonate a lot. I have a little experience of myself that I actually just graduated from myself urban planning at University of Southern California, and fight on. And I have a little bit I don't know, like confusion about myself that how to combat the stereotypes of like Asian communities during like interviews and also like the recruitment while I am actively like really looking forward to secure my first job. And there's a common stereotypes of Asian people are so good at technical stuff. They're so good at math. And especially I use my name 夏雨高, which is a fully Chinese name in my application. I started to internalize myself a little bit that whether in resume interview that I selling myself as a technical expert just to get a higher chance to be hired. I don't know if you have any similar experience or would you have any suggestion to combat this kind of feeling?
Mm. Xiaoyu, this is Nancy. Do you have any emphasis in your USC urban planning program?
I have a concentration in sustainability and climate change, but I also have previous internship in a transportation consulting firm called HNTB, and I had experience in CEQA and NEPA compliance.
Okay. And where, are you focusing or are you getting interviews from the public sector or private consulting firms?
A little bit
Oh,
on
both?
both. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Uh,
Um,
okay, Simran, go ahead. I was trying to understand.
yeah, no, that's helpful. So, when I too came here as a student, went to grad school, and when I was looking for work, I found that, especially for public sector jobs, the whole visa issue was a big deal. Like public sector, they usually don't. So I found that that was not an avenue I was able to explore very much. So, which is probably just as well because I think I'm better suited to the private sector. In terms of actual advice for how to apply for a job, I think being focused on the type of work you want to do is really important, and being upfront about what you might need in terms of you get your 3-year training or whatever, OPT or whatever it's called. Being upfront about that, I think will also help. And yes, there's folks have stereotypes about what you can do, but I think if you can represent yourself in your portfolio or your resume, or even when you get to an interview, point about what your skill set is and the ability to approach problems critically, I think that would help go a long way.
Thank you.
What we'll do, Xiaoyu, if you're interested, I dropped my email in the chat. I'm Director of Programs for WPD. We're doing a mentorship program a little bit later this year if you're a member of the division. Since you're still a student, you probably get, if you use your student email, you still get up to 5 divisions for free. Shoot me an email. If anybody on here is interested in maybe sitting down with Xiaoyu or myself or doing a little bit of mentorship on the side, shoot me an email and I can connect you guys. Also, still shoot me an email and I can get you in touch with some people to help with that. A few other things before we go. If anybody is interested in continuing this conversation or connecting with our speakers, shoot me an email also. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Judy. Also for AICP credit, put it in the chat. If you forget to put it in the chat, shoot me an email. A few reminders on WPD before we go, and then I'll let Hing if you have any reminders. Tonight is the WPD Book Club on bookclubs.com. If you scroll up in the chat, you can join there. It's free. You do not have to be a WPD member. You do not have to be a planner. You do not have to be part of APA. And we've got the largest book club in APA going, and we're finishing The Color of Compromise, which is an amazing book. You don't have to read it, but it's basically how the white church chose money over racial equity. Really good book, very firecrackery. The next book we're reading in June is called Shame on You by Melissa Petro. It's in the chat. She is a woman who was previously an escort in New Mexico, turned her life around, became a teacher. There was no crossover. Then one of the parents found out about her past, ruined her career because we can't have pasts apparently as working women, did the classic New York Times smear campaign, and it's basically how she brought her name back from the dredges, and that's next month with the LGBTQ group. So basically embracing shame and embracing our past and moving forward. But feel free to join us on bookclub.com, and anything you want to drop in, Hing.
Just want to thank you, Brittany, as well as the Women Planning Division for hosting this monthly coffee and conversation. This was very enlightening, and I'm very thankful that we have our Asia and Pacific other interest groups have a very strong steering committee. Thank you, Simran, Tippe, and Nancy for presenting today. And if you're not a member yet of our interest group, please join, because we do have our own set of webinars that we have roughly about 2 or 3 or 4 per year, plus other events. So you'll get notice if you're a member, and you'll get the email.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, guys. I'll either see you at book club tonight. Nancy, you got shout you in the comments. I'll see you at book club tonight. I'll see you at book club next month, or I'll see you at coffee break next month. So feel free to follow us all on LinkedIn, follow us all on the website, and you'll get the updates. And we'll see you guys next month.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm going to hang behind to make sure we get all the emails from everybody.
Thanks again for setting this up. This was great.
Yeah, you're good. Xiaoyu, did you get the info from the chat?
Yeah,
Nancy's email?
I'm copying Nancy's email. Give me 1
Nancy's,
second.
take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Nancy's email and Bahanuja is also on there. She left it
Yes.
for you too.
Nancy. No. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Awesome. See you next month. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everyone.